TheRightCast Podcast, a podcast to help actors find gigs and book roles. I'm your host, Ashley Scott Myers. Today we have the very talented Victoria De Mare. She is a working actor who I had the pleasure of working with on my last film, The Rideshare Killer. She's a real hustler, and in this interview she drops a ton of very practical information about how she finds and books roles. So stay tuned for that interview. Since this is the first episode, I thought I'd take a minute to explain who I am and why I started this podcast. I started my career in the late 90s as a writer, selling a spec script called Dish Dogs, and then from there I've been a writer in a few more projects and have slowly moved more into directing and producing. I run a podcast and blog over at sellingyourscreenplay.com, so do check that out if you're interested in learning more about me or want to hear more of my interviews. Mostly over there I interview producers, directors, and writers, but I think there's often a lot of good information in the interviews for actors as well, even if it's just to understand that part of the business better. And I do sometimes get actors who have directed a film, so I'll probably be moving those types of interviews over to this podcast. Right now, my goal is to publish one episode per month, and they'll be similar to this episode that I'm publishing today. I'll have a guest on to talk about their experiences as an actor or in the entertainment business, and we'll hopefully go deep enough to really get some great insight into how they work and how their careers have progressed. This isn't going to be a podcast about craft. I'm really going to try and stay focused on the nuts and bolts of helping actors find auditions and getting cast and help them learn more about the business end of being a working actor. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review. Anywhere you find the podcast, you can probably leave a review there or retweet it or share it on Facebook. These reviews are very helpful to let the various platforms know what people think of the podcast, and with some good reviews it can really help get the podcast in front of other people. So if you have a minute and wouldn't mind just leaving a review, it would be very much appreciated. If you want my free guide, 5 ways to find auditions and get cast, just go to www.therightcast.com/guide. Put in your email address and we'll send you the guide for free. We cover a wide range of topics in the guide to help you find acting opportunities, from booking theater auditions, going to Hollywood for pilot season, how to create a professional self-tape, how to find voice-over acting gigs in your town or city, and how to find acting opportunities in indie and student films in your local area. The guide can certainly be helpful to any actor at any level, but we're putting an emphasis on trying to help actors who are outside of Hollywood. Again, if you'd like to get this free guide, just go to www.therightcast.com/guide. Now let's dig into the interview with Victoria De Mare. Check out her on IMDb. It might give you a little more context if you're unfamiliar with Victoria and her work. She's been a working actor for years, and for the most part, she finds and books her own roles without an agent. And she's very open about how she does all of this, and she'll elaborate in this interview. So without further ado, here is Victoria. Welcome, Victoria, to the TheRightCast Podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Ashley. I really appreciate it.
So to start out, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background. Where are you from and how did you get into the entertainment business?
I'm from the East Coast. I was born in Delaware and I went to school in New York City at New York University. And my mother was a professional ballet dancer. My father was a pop singer in the late 50s. And my uncle was Emmy-nominated soap opera director. Edge of Night was the first soap that he directed many, many years ago, which isn't on the air anymore. I think it was actually, I want to say it was in black and white or something. Maybe I was just watching it on a black and white TV.
I think John Stamos was in that because I think my mom used to watch it. I think it made it into the 80s, and I think John Stamos was on that in the 80s anyways.
Yes. Very good memory. Yes, it was. I believe it was a CBS show. He also did Search for Tomorrow, which was a show that's not on the air anymore, Santa Barbara, As the World Turns, Another World, you name it. So he was big into daytime TV. So, and in New York City. So I just couldn't wait to get to New York City where my famous uncle director lived and get on TV. So it was always a dream of mine. to be on TV, watching my favorite television programs and films, and then going up into my bathroom off my bedroom, and acting out certain scenes and such in the mirror, and even making up my own dialogue and having different characters and having a conversation with myself in the mirror, unbeknownst to anyone. And then I made my short film when I was 13 called Sweet Suspicion, which was a thriller that I wrote that my uncle directed that I also starred in.
Wow.
So I just jump right in.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about that. So then you went to New York University, and then what were some of those steps? What was your theater major there? And then what were some of those steps coming out of there? Did you get some practical experience in school so that you were ready to kind of launch right when you got out?
I definitely did. My first year, I was actually accepted in my audition. I auditioned to be a student at the Tisch School of the Arts, which was a college within New York University. And I applied and auditioned as a dance major because my mother was a professional ballet dancer, and I had been really heavily into dance in high school and had gotten into some regional companies with some principal work in some companies in and around when I was in high school. So I went right into New York thinking that, I was going to be hired into the New York City Ballet or American Ballet Theater. And so I went to my audition. I did quite well. And they were like, hey, if you want to come here, we want to have you. And I had actually we'd love to have you. And I had actually wanted to go to Juilliard. And in Juilliard, you have to be accepted into, there's two processes you have to go through. It's your artistic evaluation and your scholastic evaluation. And I made my artistic evaluation, but my scholastic evaluation was under par because my SAT scores were really low and really underneath their minimum. So I was like, fuck, I hope we can swear on this. So NYU ended up being my backup school. So I was like, oh, and then I started to panic that so I didn't get into Juilliard, and I was like heartbroken. And then my mom was like, well, wait, go to NYU, do really well, and then you can transfer your second semester. And I was like, so that was the plan. So once I got into NYU, I loved it, and I didn't want to transfer. And so I had actually decided, instead of transferring, to go to Juilliard to audition for an actual ballet company. So I auditioned for the Joffrey Ballet Company, and I got in as a trainee member. And so I was like, oh my God. And the schedule completely conflicted with the Tisch School of the Arts schedule. So I had to change my major. So I decided to go into theater arts and broadcast journalism because I was really into television and radio media. And I was like all about it. So then I started to all my friends and stuff, like film majors, and we're studying communications and broadcast journalism and such. So I started to just get in all their projects and all their short films and feature films because that's what their homework was, to make films. And then I started working for NYU Tonight, which was the news station, as an anchor. And then I started the WNYU radio, FM radio, and I started working with the radio station. So I just jumped right in. When I graduated, the first job out of college was actually working for WCBS News Radio 88 in New York City as a desk assistant, which is basically a production assistant to the desk, which is the producers, the news desk, as a production assistant would be to the production. And so they hired two people that year, and they had hired me and another colleague of mine from school, two graduates from NYU. So we were like, fuck yeah. My parents were like, money well spent. All right. And then I started auditioning for films, and I had gotten an audition for a film out in Los Angeles, a horror film, which are always my favorite. Dennis Harper was the star, and I was like, oh my God, there's a famous movie star in it. And I came out to get that film and to audition for that film, and I didn't get the part.
Oh, okay. But you stayed in LA.
So then I came out to LA. I was like, hell yeah. It's like, this is it. This is a sign. Drove out, two cats in the car, everything I could fit in my New York City apartment, and the hatchback of my 1996 Mustang. This was, this was August of 1999. And, broke down along the way. It was like the first couple hours in the road trip, was like, yeah, going to LA. Yeah. We're going to be a movie star. We're going to work with Dennis Hopper and all these famous people. And then after 4 hours into it, later, this sucks. And then it's 5 days in the car, staying in rest stops. And I would look beautiful when I got in the car to come to LA. And when I got out of the car, I was like, I look like a homeless person. So I didn't get that part. And then I ended up becoming a homeless person. I was homeless for 2 months, about 8 weeks, almost 9 weeks, honestly. So I learned a harsh reality of
Because you
going.
moved to LA and you didn't know anybody, didn't have any money, so you're hoping this audition panned out.
I saved a couple of grand and I thought I was coming out here loaded, and my car broke down a
Mm.
couple times. So most of that money went to repairing the car and learn, like, my budget was all off. It was just, like, got out here completely broke and we're like staying in a hotel, and then like couldn't find a place to live, and then like couldn't afford hotels anymore, and then it was like it was the car and nights that I could afford a hotel so I could take a shower and sleep in the bed. And I'm going to 7-Eleven and buying Backstage West, which was the trade weekly at
Mm-hmm.
the time where actors could submit to independent productions. And I got my headshots and my resumes and my envelopes and staples and stapler from like the 99-cent store. And I'm sitting in my car looking for work, stapling headshots and resumes together, saving
Mm-hmm.
enough money for the stamps and the envelopes. And I got my beeper that I'm going to payphones with. Now you can't find payphones anymore in LA. Oh my God, my beeper went off. A
Mm-hmm.
job, a possible audition. Oh my God. And yeah, literally walking up and down Sunset Boulevard,
And so
uh,
let's talk about
never
some of your
really
first. Yeah,
I was hoping people would give me money.
and so let's talk about some of your first gigs. You're going to back. It sounds like Backstage West. I think Dramalog was out back then.
Yeah.
Those sorts of things. Some of your first credits: Slaughterhouse Studios, Dino Croc. Maybe you can talk about those as you're just basically homeless, struggling to kind of get a foothold. What were some of those steps to get those first actual gigs?
Submitting, just looking for work every single solitary day. Now online, you can look on multiple services, sites, things that you can sign up for, things that you can look for free, and just submit to work all day long. With Backstage West or the Drama Log, it would come out once a week, and it would have whatever it would have in there, and you submit to as many things you can, and just kind of wait. The first paying job that I got, and I was so excited, was actually a dinner theater production. And I was so excited because the rehearsals paid and gave you a meal. And the performances were an actual show where people were coming to a dinner party, and they would sit down in this room where it wasn't like a stage and the actors were up on the stage. And they would come in and sit down at dinner, and the actors would come in as if they were guests and come in and sit down. You have to have your story and your improv, and then the show would start from there. And it was a murder mystery that someone would be to choke or whatever, and to pass out at the table, and oh my God, is anybody a doctor, and this and that, and it goes into this whole that he was poisoned, and what, and then they're like, what's happening here? And then they realize, oh shit, they're in the show, that this is the show. So you're eating and it was great because it gave you a meal too. So you knew you had a meal for that day, and you're listening for the cues. You're like, you're eating your soup and you're listening for your cues. Like, wait, that's what we kill. Hold on, wait for 1 second, because you're talking to somebody at the table and you have to get up and do your thing. It was fantastic, and it paid in cash, like per night. I was walking out, I had cash in my hand, gas in my car. I got my first apartment, was doing like rug angels, and went to the 99-cent store. God, I'm going to thank, when I get an Oscar, the 99-cent store for existing, so that I could buy things like plates and silverware and glasses and towels to have in my apartment. And through Backstage West, I submitted to a production called Strangers Online, which was written and directed by a filmmaker named John Huckard. And John Huckard had worked with Roger Corman. And I was so excited when I got this film because it was a paying job and a supporting role, a principal role in the film. And I just from submitting and looking for work. And when I showed up to the meeting, he was wearing a hat with a logo Hard on the front. And I remember going, oh my God, I know this movie. And I remembered sitting in my New York apartment and watching this show on E! Entertainment called Coming Attractions. And there was this film called Hard that was coming out. And I remembered seeing the show. It was like my favorite show to watch after I watched the Friends reruns on like TBS. And I go to Entertainment Tonight and I'm watching Coming Attractions. And I saw this film and I was like, oh my God, it was like this gritty, like indie film that was coming out, like nationwide, worldwide, in theaters it played. I was like, oh my God. And when I sat down at the audition, I was like, oh my God. And he started to talk to me. He's like, yeah, I had this film out in theaters. It was called Hard. And I actually played worldwide. I won some awards. And I was like, I know your film. I saw it on E! Coming Attractions. I just moved here from New York. I was like, I can't believe this. I was like, how did I manifest this? And the audition went well, and he cast me. And the production was really slow in building its budget. And he was hired to write another film for Roger Corman called Slaughter Studios, and he had suggested me for the audition. And when I got the role, I remember telling some colleagues of mine, friends and actors, that Peter Green, who was one of Quentin Tarantino's gangs, who was in Pulp Fiction, who was in a lot of his films. And he was working with Donna D'Erco at the time, and she had just worked on a Roger Corman film. And he was like, "How are things going?" And I was like, "Yeah, well, I got cast in a Roger Corman film, man, or whatever." And he was like, "What?" He was like, "Do you know who that is? And do you know who the people are working?" He's like, "I'm working with Donna D'Erco from Baywatch. Who just worked on a film right now. We just worked with Roger Corman." He was like, "Man, you like made it. Do you?" And I was like, "I did." And I was like, "Oh my God, I made it." And it was like I had been in I was like 6 months where I had just been homeless. So it started with a bang. And that film was shot in Roger Corman's last studio out in Venice Beach. His famous Venice Beach Studios is no longer there. So I'm a very proud Corman alum. Dino Crop followed that, and I couldn't believe it because, again, Huckard had written the script and had suggested me for the role in the film. And when I came in and auditioned for that film, the director afterward, or the producer afterwards, was like one of these reactions where I'd never gotten in my life. Looking at me wide-eyed, wide mouth, or whatever, and I didn't know if that was good or not, or whatever. And I was like, oh, and then I walked out, and my colleague John Huckard, was in the room, and he came out afterwards, and I turned around, and I was almost in tears. I was like, he didn't say anything. He was catatonic, and he said, "Victoria, if we had had a camera up and a crew with some better lighting and had shot that, we'd be ahead of the schedule. You nailed that. You nailed it beyond what we had even imagined." And that's why his reaction was that way. And I was like, oh my God. And it was really funny. I didn't get that part. I didn't actually get that part. I was cast in another role because the producer's girlfriend had read the script, and the part that she really wanted to play was, of course, the part that I had auditioned for and had nailed. They didn't have anybody else in mind for the role, but then when she wanted to play it, because she wanted to be an actress, she got the part. But she no longer has a career, and I've been on over 150 films now. So
there you go. There you go. Let's talk about your experience as Batty Boop in the Killjoy series. It sounds like a lot of these gigs sort of went from one to another. You started to make some networking connections, but it sounds like at the core, it was this onslaught of submissions you were making when you first got here. But just take us up to speed now. Batty Boop, how did you get involved with that franchise, the Killjoy franchise? How did you get cast into that?
Well, I knew Charles Band and Full Moon Features because that goes way, way back to the 80s. Those films used to play in theaters. Were distributed by Paramount Pictures back in the day. So I had known Full Moon Features was forever, since I was a kid. I mean, who doesn't know Puppet Master? And a colleague of mine had seen me in a film called Shadows, and it was a comedy thriller, and I played this really sassy bitch. And just conniving. She had her eye on the prize, and she didn't care what she did or who she hurt or what happened to get it, kind of character. And she was supposed to be very, very attractive. So I had worked out really hard for this role to look really good for this role. She was always in bikinis and crop tops and this whole thing. I thought, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, I really got to put in the work. And I was on set with another production where my colleague John Lechago had come by to see the filmmaker. I think Jeff Leroy. We were shooting one of the Werewolf in a Women's Prison films or something, and had said to me, "Oh, like walking by, oh, Victoria, I saw you in Shadows, and I loved it. And you were amazing." And then I remember thinking, I was like, "Oh, thank you very much." And then like when he walked out, I remember thinking like, "Well, did he think I sucked before?" Like sometimes when people say that, you're like, "Wow, I saw you in this and you were great." And you're like, "Man, because I sucked ass and everything else, I guess." You're like, "Okay, thank you." They like
you're too hard on yourself.
You're like, "Well, at least they're watching. At least they're watching." You're like, yes. Even if, like, the same thing with music, even if people hate your music, at least they're listening, So not too long after that, Jeff Leroy had contacted me and said, did you read the new script that John Lechago wrote for Charles Band? And I said, John Lechago is working for Charles Band, like Full Moon Features? And he was like, yeah. And he said, there's part in it for you. That where he wrote it with you in mind, but he doesn't know if you're interested in playing it. But I got the script and I read it. And I was like, and he's like, it's Batty Boop. It's his character Batty Boop. And I was like, what is that? And then, so then John, and he's like, oh, he'll probably call you. So then he does. And he was like, yeah, I wrote this part with you in mind. I'm picking up the Killjoy series. And I knew the Killjoy series. And I was like, Jesus, they made one or two or three. And he said, this is three. They haven't made two. And I said, I think 2002 or whatever. And this was 2009. He was like, yeah. I'm like, whoa. And he said, Charles wants to reboot this series. So John came on to write and direct Killjoy 3. or Killjoy's Revenge, they call it in some territories, or Killjoy the Demon Clown. So it's all these different titles. But anyhow, I said, yeah, here, you got something in there for me. Thank you. And he said, yeah, give it a read and tell me what you think. And I read it and I thought, oh my God. And so I called him and I said, what do you want me to do with this? And he said, I want to utilize your dance background. So give her a specific behavior. Create some kind of voice, go with an accent, Cockney maybe. He's like, I don't know, you're from the East Coast or whatever, New York maybe, but something like a heavy New York, like a Bronx or a Brooklyn. I don't know, make up something. And then he was like, and I was wondering if you would perform this character fully nude so I could paint you down to look like an actual succubus. We're going to put prosthetics on you, wig, the whole thing. It's going to take maybe half a day to get you ready, even into, and I was like, oh my God. And then I was thinking, all right, my next question, of course, was how much? Because this is going to be insane. So then we went forward on it, and we shot the first film in China. And I remember like flying there. I met the guy who was the star at the airport, Trent Haga, who had been portraying Killjoy from 2 to 3, and he did 4 and 5 also. They had reached out to Angel Vargas, who had played Killjoy in the first one, and he went AWOL, and no one could find him. No one could get in touch with him. But John had actually wanted to reboot him and bring him back. Because the original doll, Killjoy doll and action figure, was made from Angel's performance in Killjoy, the first one. So we go to China and meet Trent. I'm terrified of flying, and it took us like 17 hours to get to China or whatever. And Trent is a real character, and we hit it off right away. And he, like, I'm reading my script and studying or whatever on the flight, and he's like reading like Pulp Fiction novels and like watching movies and sleeping and stuff. And so I'm like studying. And then we get there, like we have to take the car service picks us up, it takes us, we have to take this train, and this other like bus picks us up, and we take the button, and we have to get off, and then this other car picks us up, it takes us out to the middle of nowhere to the studio. And where we meet everyone, and it was crazy. It was like a movie in a movie, because you walk in and it was like Paramount on there. You're like in the middle of like the jungle. I mean, we flew into Hong Kong, but we were on the mainland in Guangzhou, out in the middle of the jungle, and it was crazy incredible. It was so hot. The humidity was crazy.
Why did they go to China? Why did they?
Ace Studios, which was that big compound like Paramount there, was the big company there. And Ace Studios was a co-production with full features on this one. And so we shot, I mean, we weren't shooting in the jungle. It was all interiors, and they built all the sets or whatever. So, but we were out there, and it was awesome. And I was terrified. I had worked so hard on this character because she's not human. She's a demon succubus clown. And Killjoy creates her when he comes back in the third one to be, he's the demon of vengeance. So when you want to get revenge and vengeance, you summon him, and he came back this time with a posse, and he brings his girlfriend and 2 other buddies. So I was the main female lead, but a villain. And, it's with a villain, villains can be really hard to play because you want them to love to hate you, but they have to be likable. Mm-hmm. And then I'm nude, and so, and to be able to behave in that way and not be like, oh my God, I'm fucking totally naked and everybody's looking at my hoo-ha right now. And then the voice, and to be able to keep that the whole time, I mean, just to be able to live in that voice, not be able to think about it, and every behavior that she did, and she has a tail, and and I was like, oh my God. The first day when the transportation came to pick us up at the hotel, and John was staying at some house, so they had picked him up first, and then I got on the car, and he was like, good morning, Victoria, how are you? And I was like, oh my God, John, I just don't want to let you down. And I just broke down into tears, like hysterical crying. I woke up, I had in the morning, I couldn't sleep. I had red splotches all over my body. I was sick to my stomach all morning. I get into the bus and start crying, or the car that picks us up or whatever. And he was like, it's going to be fine. Victoria's going to be totally fine. We've got time. It's going to be good. It's going to be fine. I was like a disaster. It literally took me every day 5.5 hours to get ready before I even shot. We shot a 12-hour day, got 30 minutes for lunch, where I just laid down in my dressing room. I required a dressing room big enough that where the makeup department could come in and make me up, because I couldn't be in the makeup department people have to do fully nude. I couldn't sit down the whole time. I had to stand the whole time. So that was challenging. And I had to stand still and with arms out and up above and out laterally and bending knees and legs out and bend over and this and that. And so it was like doing yoga for 5.5 hours. I also required to be able to play the Natural Born Killer soundtrack from Oliver Filmstone that Trent Reznor produced. And even though it annoyed everyone every day, we were going to listen to that on repeat around and around because that's what I needed to hear to do that. Mm-hmm. And then I needed 10 minutes before I was noticed, before I was going to be called to set. And that I had to have a dressing room or a trailer really far away so I could be loud because I was going to turn up L7 shit list and I was going to yell the profanities like you've never heard in your life. Like a demon was real. I mean, the demon was coming on, was really going to come out of there and rip your head off. Fuck you, cocksucking motherfucking, gonna fucking kill you, fuck. Throwing stuff around, kicking stuff around. And then I learned afterwards that the PAs were having a debate about who was going to go and get me because nobody wanted to get me. No, they were like, no, fucking no, look, dude, I'll buy you lunch. I am not going over there to get. Nobody wanted to come to get me because they were afraid of me. But as soon as they opened the door, I'm all, oh, my door. And then it was Batty. And then I had to be Batty the whole fucking day. I had to be by myself to eat my lunch alone, where I just kind of laid down and just cried and rolled around. Just stayed horizontal because you had to be standing the whole time because I needed that. She needed to have that thing where she was always moving. When you're not being able to sit down after a while, you start jumping around and moving even more and just having this she had to have an angst to her. I wasn't able to sit down. Don't sit down for half a damn day. And then it'll make you not sit down. And to get out of it, I had 2.5 hours to get out of that makeup. Mm-hmm. And then when we shot the other films in LA and I had transportation to drive me home, whether they took me back to the hotel or not, I just cried the whole time. I just cried the whole time, just because I thought this is either going to go down as an iconic character and be like this little niche thing, and she's going to become like this iconic little thing in the B world and one of the most popular characters female villain characters that Full Moon has in their catalog, or I'm going to go down in history as the worst actress who has ever fucking lived. And then even in the mornings in LA, when they had to come pick me up, I mean, I was literally, I don't know how I did the schedule. They'd pick me up at about 4:30, 4:45. I thought about 4:30 because I had to get to the studio by about 4:45 to get me ready by about 10:15, 10:30 to be shooting with everybody else. And then at the end of the night, it was always, the producer, the guy who was locking up the studio, and John the Chaco and me, because it took me 2.5 hours to get out of that. Mm-hmm. And then being driven home and I had to work out. I need at least an hour of downtime. And then I need to sleep and eat or whatever. And it's just somehow we were doing the math of that. I was literally getting 3 hours to sleep and shower and eat because I was doing 21-hour days.
Jeez. So I'm curious, it sounds like the Killjoy role came, again, out of networking. A lot of your roles came from networking. Do you have a particular strategy when you're on set to do some of this networking, just make yourself liked, talk to the right people? Are there any tips you could give for actors when they're on set? What is appropriate? I think what you're describing there is I think from a producer, as I hear that, is you're an actor that's really committed to the performance and really giving them all. And so, I think that's a strategy in and of itself that probably works for you and is a big reason why people keep, bringing you back for other projects. But are there some other things that you do, just you could offer tips to actors on set, how to behave, how to network properly?
I would say that my career occurred more through working first, looking for work and getting the job first. And being really focused on what you said, and if you want to be in this profession and not just with the glitz and glitter and glamour that you see of the people on the upper echelon that hit it on the lottery, and you really want to be a working actor and dedicate your life to this profession, you have to realize that the things you're going to be doing, and that if it's film and TV, it's going to live and be out there forever. So commit to that and want to do a good job. I think a lot of B actors get a lot of bad reputation because a lot of times it's low budgets, they're not getting paid a lot. Maybe it's not the favorite character that they're doing, and they're just kind of phoning it in, and they're not really giving a lot to it, and it's just whatever, and it comes out bad, and they get a reputation for being bad. No matter if the camera's on, no matter what I'm working on, it's going to live out there forever. I give it my best, and I don't take jobs and I don't take characters I don't really want to do. If I only submit to jobs and look for jobs that for characters that I want to play, that I want to add to my repertoire, that I will really want to get into. So my career occurred from working, because all of these things happened where then I submitted, I got the audition, I got the job, and I was working, and they remembered me. So they referred me to another audition, or they remembered me and referred me to another booking, or they booked me on their next project. Or someone sees you in something, like John LeChago saw me in that movie. That was a job I submitted to, I worked on, someone saw, and then he wrote Batty Boop for me. So yes, once you got to focus on getting the job first and doing a good job, showing up as a professional, because the eyes are on you. You never know what job you're going to get. Work breeds work, and you never know who's going to remember you and hire you. So show up on time, show up prepared, read the script, for crying out loud. Have your character prepared. It's not just about learning your lines. You figure out who you are playing three-dimensionally. It is your job to take what is written and create that person from what they say. It's your choice, and then you get with the director maybe and collaborate, but you make the choice. It's your job. You decide how they speak, how they sound when they speak. Everybody sounds differently. Their intonations, how they behave, how they move, how would they do their hair, what is their favorite color, what do they like to eat? What you find out that all out, and you choose all that, and you pick all that out from what the script says based on what you were saying. And that's how you transcribe the person from the page three-dimensionally to the person who's living on screen. So get good at that. Get good at your job. Show up on time. Have choices. Be big, because then a director could be like, all right, someone did their homework. Now I have something to work with. I work with a lot of people that after we're halfway through a shoot, I say, how's it going? Am I okay? Is it going okay? Do you like what I'm doing? Should I be doing anything different? You're not saying anything to me. And a lot of times the director is like, because everything you're doing is perfect. I love it. It's more than I even imagined. And there's nothing to say. I'm just enjoying watching you work. And that is such an incredible compliment to me, because then it's like, okay, I'm doing my job, and I'm doing a good job, and people will remember that. So then when you're on set, talk to people. That's how you get other work, by working and talking to people while you're working, and people remember that. Hey, you send an email afterwards. Thank you so much for hiring me. It was so great to work with you. Please consider me for your next production. Send that to everyone, not just the producer and the person who signs your checks, but make sure you send that person the email first. You got to send the director, the person who cast you, the DP, all the department heads, email every department head, the makeup people, everyone. You never know. I've had makeup artists refer me to jobs. You get a lot of jobs in this business, and you become a working professional because you are working. People remember you. You put yourself out there on set. You follow up with emails, and you do a good job, and you don't know where the work is going to come from. In any industry, you can really plug it in, but want to be there. Don't take a job, like I've learned this too. Don't take a job just for a paycheck, because you can find the money and make the money another way. Be on that set because you want to be there. Because when you're going to start out and making low money on low budget productions, there's going to be a lot of downtime, and it's going to be really hard, because filmmaking and any kind of production that involves a group of people and an idea requires a lot of money to make that happen. And people don't understand that. They see these big productions and they think, wow. And then they see these other B movies, are like, that's shit. Well, yeah, because we didn't have the same materials. We didn't have the same money. If we had that budget, watch what we could do too. And they don't realize those big productions employ thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people. I work on productions sometimes where there's 30 people total, cast and crew, everybody, down to post-production. So, give it your all, because I've been working so hard that way from when I was homeless in my car, that when I start working on major studio productions in major principal roles, I I go to auditions and people are like, thank you for coming in. You nailed that. I was waiting. I'm awake. I was waiting to see that all goddamn day. Go to your auditions and prepare for your auditions like you have already gotten the job, like you are going to set. Go in character, go in wardrobe, makeup, bring props. If they're not obnoxious ones, if there's a shot glass or a cigarette or a purse or a cell phone, make it real, make it live. Go there like you've already gotten the job, and people will remember you. And then just because you went and did that audition, don't lay back on your laurels and be like, oh yeah, that they said I nailed it. That was the best audition that they'd ever seen. Just on to the next, because I've heard compliments like, that was the best audition I've ever seen. I have people crying, they say don't touch casting directors. I've had major casting directors get up from behind their table, walk around to me, go and shake my hand, give me a hug, walk me to the door, walk me out to the lobby and out to the front door. So I didn't get that job either. I mean, I've had people tell me that was the best. I've had a casting director say to me, "You are the best actor I have ever had live in my room." Didn't get that job either. So just keep, and then the point is that I was doing good work and people were noticing that. I don't know when that's going to come back to me. The universe works in mysterious ways.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about what you're talking about, getting some of these auditions. What does an actor need to be armed with in the year 2021? What do they actually need to go in and get some of these auditions, headshots? I know when I first got to LA in the 90s, it seemed like an actor had one headshot that they would really use. It seems like now actors have, a half dozen headshots that they use for different occasions, and reels. What's your thoughts on reels? And then maybe we'll even get in some of these services that you use to actually find submissions. But let's start out with headshots. How should an actor go about getting a headshot, finding a good photographer?
You can find great photographers all online, on the different casting sites and whatnot that I use and that are available, some of which you pay for, some of which are free. Always have photographers advertising. They do specials and packages. Headshots used to be really expensive, like paying like $500 for someone to take your pictures, and you're getting, 36 shots out of that. You're looking at a contact sheet and you're picking a couple and getting a couple blown up, and they're very expensive. It's $50 each. And then you're getting the dupes and the whole thing. That's a thing of the past. So now you can get photographers for $100, $150 to shoot you and do good work and to shoot you like all day long. And they're digital, and you can go through and go, okay, that one's shit, let's delete that. And then you could get like 100 you could go through. And it's good to have a lot of different pictures of the different characters and to know the different characters that you like to play and that you play well. Everybody knows what they do best and what they want to play and what they do play best. Don't wait for representatives to go, oh, well, you should play this and you should play that. They're not playing the roles. They're not doing the work. You are. So know what you play best and want to play best and have shots that represent that. Don't go, and if you're playing a nurse, and go put on a nurse's costume and shit like that, but do something in a nice collared shirt or whatever, maybe not necessarily white or whatever, but get with a photographer that also isn't just someone who is either also a cinematographer, but someone who shoots headshots and actors and models all the time, because they can give you tips about colors of background. Shooting in natural light is always best. Having some kind of image in the background or color in the background is always good. Something that looks like a moving image that would be a still from a movie or a TV show is the best kind of shot to use. And have a different variety. Have 10 or 12. You can put up half a dozen or a dozen shots on these services now. It's okay, because then it kind of becomes your portfolio. And if you're also a model, you can mix and match with, your bikini shots and lingerie shots, your athletic shots. Or what have you. You might want to have, if you do sporty yoga, you might, you're a guy and you play tennis or whatever, you might want to have a tennis shot in there, and things for athletics. You might want to do something on your yoga mat, but don't go and be, like the fireman and have a fire hat on and stuff like that. Just have a cool rugged jacket on or whatever, and don't do costumes.
Gotcha. And you have a similar opinion on reels?
On reels, it's absolutely imperative to have something that they can see, and it doesn't have to be from a Marvel movie. It can be from a student film that you did, but choose something that looks good, that the quality of the camera that it was shot on and the lighting is good, and choose something. Casting directors are only looking for how good do you look, how do you photograph, how well do you photograph, how do you look on film, and how well did you do with the material? They know you're not Scarlett Johansson and Tom Cruise. They just want to see how you look on camera and how you do. What was that a good scene? Was that funny, or was that dramatic? Or was that believable? Were you enjoyable to watch? That's all they're looking for. So choose stuff where you are your best stuff. Put your best stuff first. Only put your name on the front and your name and your contact information on the back. Your website. Preferably don't put a phone number or an email, especially if you're putting it up on YouTube. Just put your website or your Instagram or your IMDb link or whatever social media you want on there. But just one and small, short. People don't have long attention spans. If you can have a reel with 12 different clips, that's a minute and a half, perfect. Keep it to a minute and a half, 2.5 minutes. If you have something that's over 3 and it's really good, they might continue to still watch it, but they might tune out after a minute and a half. There's a time factor, and people just want stuff that's quick. If you have like 5 different shots of clips on something and it's a minute, perfect. I used to put up on the sites my reel, which I have a lot of stuff, so I would try and squeeze it down to under 3 minutes, but then I'd also have my speed reel up there too, where it would be quick cuts of a bunch of different shit that was a minute, because people will watch something that's a minute. So if you can cut something together that's a speed reel and just use your speed reel, which I did for a long time, do it. The shorter, the better. But have something for them to see, especially if you're trying to do television and film. You need to have a reel.
I've seen too where actors, they'll have a 90-second horror reel, a 90-second comedy reel, and a 90-second dramatic reel. And so then if you're casting if you're a casting director, you're casting a horror, you can just watch that 90 seconds. You don't have to watch a whole 3 minutes to get that and figure out what's the horror part.
I think that's interesting. I put mine all together because I consider myself a character actor. So I put anything that's comedy mixed in with total drama where I'm crying my eyes out, mixed in with I'm the monster literally coming out of the wall. I put it all in there and mix it up, because then it shows your versatility of an actor. I would actually suggest not doing that, not having your comedy reel and your drama reel and your horror reel, because you're an actor. And if you're an actor, you could play anything, unless you only want to do horror, or you only want to do comedy, and your stand-up, you got your stand-up reel on there, and then you've got your comedic stuff because you want to do a sitcom. If you're going to be genre specific, then have those specific reels. Otherwise, have one reel as short as possible with all your best stuff. Mix it up to show your versatility, because as an actor, you should be able to play everything.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I really want to emphasize the point you made. As a producer that's had to go through all these reels, when I see a 5-6 minute reel, it's like, if you see that 90-second you just don't have time to watch 1,000 reels that are 6 minutes. So that's a very, very important point. Okay. So let's talk about agents here. You have a number of agents, theatrical, commercial. I think you even have a publicist and a lawyer. Talk about that. Number one, I'd just like to know, as a working actor here in Hollywood, how many of your gigs actually come through your representation, as opposed to you actually getting out there, you're networking, you're beating the bush, just making submissions?
I have over 150 credits now in total that aren't all on IMDb, because IMDb isn't always up to date and totally complete. One of those films, my agent of 22 years, we hadn't been together the whole time. We had taken some time off and come back to, had submitted me to, that I booked. Out of over 150 credits, one. Do not wait for your representation to get you work. They don't get you work. They're looking through the same breakdown services that you're looking for. They're reading the same characters that you're looking for, and they're look yourself. You are your product or your brand or whatever you want to fucking call it. You are your business. So you have to take control of that. Your representatives, if you have them, you don't need a representative to work. So don't think it's people, new actors and young actors that come out to Hollywood and they're like, where do I go to be a star? And people are telling them all the wrong things. You got to get an agent. You got to get a manager. No, you don't. What you have to do is get work. You have to get a job. You have to get credits. You have to build a career. Do not wait for your representation to do that for you. They don't do that. You build your own career. You find your own work. Okay? So get your own job. Out of over 150 credits in 22 years, one of mine was because my agent submitted me and I booked. No, not that she doesn't submit me. Yes, she does. Not that I don't go out on auditions that she submits me to. Yes, she does. And yes, I do. But I go out on way more auditions that I submit myself. And don't waste your time with managers. You don't need someone to manage you. Unless you need a mommy. Do you still need your mommy or your daddy? I mean, if you do, then maybe you need someone to handle people for you or whatever. If you're your own business and you weren't an actor and you went out and you were making comic books or you were making dolls and you can't handle your own business and you have to get somebody else to talk to you who wants to talk about your business, then you've got a problem. And that's what people, as actors and young actors and people who are coming up and trying to form a career, even if you're 45 and you want to jump into this business, do it by all means. There's no age limit, but be the helm of your own business. Those people work for you. They get paid when you work. So you want to go out there and get the work. And when you procure work that they don't procure for you, they don't get paid. Read the fine print of your contracts. Don't sign these contracts with these bullshit managers who are not organized by unions and who are not monitored legally by unions that have fine print in there that say, even if you die during the course of something that I submitted you to, and then your estate owes me 50% for the rest of their lives, and shit like that. Don't read the fine print.
Mm-hmm.
And also know that you can go with any representative that is SAG and AFTRA franchise legally for 90 days. That's 3 months without signing a goddamn thing, and see how many auditions that they actually come in that they submitted you for, because they're not getting you their auditions, they're submitting just like you are. And then if the audition comes back, great, then they let you know. The same thing when you submit yourself. They're not getting you work, you're getting yourself work. Mm-hmm. There's a total fallacy in this business. So when you go to those auditions and stuff like that, you might procure them, great. So then they take the percentage of what they did for the booking. But if you procure a job that they didn't submit for you, read the fine print. You don't have to pay them on that. They had nothing to do with it. If you submit it yourself, you booked the audition yourself, you went and handled the audition yourself, you did the booking and the negotiating yourself, and you kind of signed the contract yourself, what the hell are you paying them for? So read the fine print. If you're going to get any representative in this business, and if you're moving to LA or you're just arrived to LA, the two things you're going to need most important. I've lived in LA for 22 years. You need a good mechanic and you need a good lawyer. If you're going to get any representative, invest in a good entertainment lawyer. And there are all different kinds of entertainment lawyers depending upon what you need. Probably most likely you're going to need a contractual lawyer. So get a good lawyer and pay him the money either on his hourly or on his deduction of his percentage or whatever you negotiate with him. Him or her will tell you. But get a good lawyer is what you're going to need more than anything else. And if you start to work, or if you have any production that you want people to know about, invest in a publicist. I would say, honestly, in my opinion, the two most important representatives you're ever going to have in your career are your lawyer and your publicist. Because you could do 5,000 films, but if nobody hears about them, nobody knows about them, nobody sees them, it doesn't matter. So invest in a publicist who's going to get out there for you and pay them their monthly fee or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And also know that you have to invest in your business. You have to invest in your career too. And if you want to make money, you got to spend money. Don't sit there with your hand out. Who's going to pay me and hire me and pay me? You got to work for it. You got to earn for it. And you have to be willing to invest in it, because if you do, then that's going to come back to you. Mm-hmm. So be willing to spend money to make money. That is how business works. And, just continue to put yourself out there relentlessly and don't take no for an answer. If I've tried to get in the door of casting directors that have taken me a decade. And they keep submitting, and my agent's submitting, and I'm submitting, and you're sending them emails, and even if you're not supposed to, do it anyway. There are no rules in this business. There are no goddamn rules. And just stay relentless at it, and then a decade later, they might call you in, and, mm-hmm. And they might be, casting a Showtime show or something. So, yeah. And they'll remember you. So just be relentless. Don't listen to what the people tell you. Follow your own instincts, and don't fall into the pitfall of my agent or your manager gets you work. You get yourself work, create your own career.
Yeah. Sound advice. I hope people are really listening to that. 1 gig out of your 150 has come through the agents. So you keep mentioning that you do submit a lot yourself. What are some of the services that you use? I think you and I met through Breakdown Services. We were casting a movie and you came in for a great audition. And I would like, if we have time, to talk a little bit about that. But just to talk about quickly, what are some of the services that you use, free, paid, whatever, that you find quality auditions on?
Yes, I think Actors Access is the most valuable site to be on. And here's why. It is the Actors Access, exactly the Actors Access to the Breakdown Services. The Breakdown Services are the premier list of casting services that all the major casting directors are putting their projects on. And I'm talking about the studio casting directors and all the major film studios, networks, television shows, even the major streaming services, and all major independent films that are going to have some good substance and service. So good projects are going to be on the Actors Access section of the Breakdown Services. You want to be on that. It's only $63 to sign up for the year, and you can submit yourself unlimited submissions. 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, you can jump on. You can put up pictures. You can put up your resume. You can put up a reel or reels. You can put up your profile breakdown, all your skills, everything up on it, your contact information as well as your representative's information, and you don't have to have a representative to join. I also definitely recommend The casting networks and the casting frontier, they're both around $20 a month. It's a little bit more expensive, but they have a lot more variety. With Actors Access, you're looking at predominantly film and television. There are some commercials on there, some music videos, some modeling jobs, but if you really want to go commercial and music videos and print and modeling work, industrials, web series, you want to get on the casting networks and casting frontier, which are each about $20 a month. Like I said, you can put up photos, reels. There are different premium levels that you can pay for, where you can go on, again, unlimited every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and look for work. I would also highly recommend, aside from those 3 top services that you're going to pay for, the one free service that I use on a daily basis is Craigslist. Look on Craigslist in the talent section, the gig section, any other sections that you might have skills, because there is a lot of pornography on there, yes. There are a lot of scams on there, yes, but there is a lot of real work on there. Trust me, I've been a working actor for only over 20 years, and I have used Craigslist. I have met people you would not believe through Craigslist and I booked a television show in the UK that I was on for years through Craigslist, okay?
Huh.
You have to just, look everywhere and don't be afraid of Craigslist. Look in the talent and gig sessions specifically and read them. Don't submit to jobs on Craigslist that don't list a pay rate in the casting post. Okay, if it says to be determined or is paid or there is pay, no. Only submit to stuff that has all the legitimate information, when, where, what the rate is, what exactly that they're looking for, their name and contact information, an email on there. Those are the legitimate projects that actually stipulate an actual rate. And because a lot of times I will see those projects are also on casting networks. So don't be afraid of Craigslist. A long time ago, Craigslist could be dangerous and people had gotten murdered and stuff. And I will admit
Yeah.
that 22 some years ago, in 1999, 2000, when I was looking on Craigslist, wasn't online at that time. There was like a Craigslist list. There was like an actual paper then or something. I mean, it was more like into 2001 or something. But I had gone to a couple jobs that I had booked through online on Craigslist, where I had showed up, and it was the last thing really quick that I wanted to say. And I got a really, really bad feeling when I showed up. When I showed up and I had, there was a booking, which was a shoot, it was a modeling gig, and everything checked out on my little checklist. And when I showed up, it looked like there was nobody home. And as I drove kind of around, because the house was kind of on a corner, it looked like there were some lights on in the back, and I just got a really bad feeling. I just thought to myself, no, don't get out of the car. I know you need the money. You're completely broke and you're starving, but no, just it's not worth it. No. Mm-hmm. So follow and that happened to me one other time too. Always on set, even if you show up to a Screen Actors Guild production and something feels weird, something feels amiss, that's your intuition. That's your higher self trying to communicate with you and warn you. No, danger. Mm-hmm. If something feels off, don't stick around to figure out what it is that's off. Just trust the fact that you feel, that you know that something is off, and go with it and leave. Trust your intuition always.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sound advice for sure. So let's talk about some of your recent project. You're in a couple of comedies. Maybe you can talk about those real quickly. Just what are they about? And again, just to give us some insight, how did those gigs come about for you?
I have a comedy coming out called American Hun Story that I'm in, directed by Tilly Shore, who I also have a song in, and they commissioned me actually to create the song for the film. So I was very, very excited. And I had submitted to it was a promo video on the casting networks, which was the lacasting.com of the casting networks. And Tully had booked me for that job and had remembered that I was also a musician and songwriter, and contacted me for this film. Again, I submitted for work. I went auditioned. I booked the work. He remembered me, and then he contacted me for this film and remembered that I was a musician and had asked me to create a song for the film. So that's how that came out. It's a comedy about a businessman who's down and out, searching online for different chicks on this American Hun service. Hun Story service, with all these different chicks to show up who are going to give him insight to his life, and the different girls show up talking about your finances and your love life and your house, your this, your that, your pets and everything. Really, really cute, funny story. And And then I also have a Sharp Stick, which is another comedy coming out starring Lena Dunham, Taylor Page, Scott Speedman, Jennifer Jason Leigh. That Lena Dunham is also directing, which is really super exciting. Mm-hmm. And I had submitted to this again through the casting networks, lacasting.com. And auditioned and had booked the role, and did a major follow-up on that film, and have stayed in touch with, I play a porn star in the film, and have stayed in touch with the intimacy coordinator on that film. His name is Chantal Cousset, and who works on nonstop network TV productions and all the top productions, all the top people. So I stay in contact with her all the time. And it was funny how she had reached out to me and said that she saw something. I had liked something on her Instagram, which is another thing that people, as far as if you really, 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 really want to do networking, get on all social media, follow all the people that you work with, especially the filmmakers and whatnot, and really stay connected to networking on social media, because people really remember that. And she was like, "Oh, Victoria, it was so great that you left this comment. I was just talking about you on set today and how amazing that you were. And that's so weird. You totally came up." And I was thinking, yes, because she works on all the major stuff. So again, I think there's going to be a referral there, and I'm going to get a call for something else. And I really put my extra best foot forward on that one. So again, work breeds work, and just keep looking for work and keep working on everything and anything that you can nonstop.
Yeah, yeah. And it sounds like you have a track getting ready to drop. You did something with DMX.
Yes, DMX and I worked on a film a couple of years ago together that had come out and played in theaters worldwide for a couple months, actually, called Beyond the Law, which also starred Steven Seagal. And I had a song in that film, and he had remembered that, and I submitted to a mixtape that he did. He did 3 mixtapes before he passed away, and I was on one of them that I had submitted to, which was really, really exciting. And my hip hop dance song was very popular on that mixtape. So he had reached out to me about doing some features, and we had talked about working together and some more music. And he did a couple features on a couple of my tracks, and my new hip hop rap track called Never Try, that I performed with Mojo King Wojo, who was out of Detroit, who was also on DMX's Excalibur, which was the mixtape that dropped in February. We have this new single out that Power 106 FM in LA has picked up. They are the #1 hip hop and rap FM radio station in Los Angeles. And nice. So let's start spinning this month. It's called Never Try, and you can check it out now for free if you want to stream it on SoundCloud and YouTube. It's out there for you right now.
Perfect. Well, that's great. Maybe I'll get that roundup for the show notes. People can click over that SoundCloud link. What are some of the other ways for people to keep up with you? Twitter, Facebook, just give us those now, and I will round those up as well for the show notes.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's really important that everybody goes out there and make an appearance on every page that you can. The only site that I'm not on at this time is Facebook. I've gone off Facebook. I've had some problems on Facebook with stalkers, with serious situations with stalkers where I had to get lawyers involved, and there was some ugliness there. So I am not on Facebook anymore, but I am on Twitter. I am on LinkedIn. I am on YouTube. I am on Instagram. I am on SoundCloud. I am on IMDb. I have my own website, victoriademare.com, and I'm also on a celebrity service called cameo.com, which is a real fun video site that you can go on and get private and direct messages and videos from your favorite musicians, movie stars, and celebrities, and athletes, I think, are on there as well.
So, well, perfect, Victoria. I know this went a lot longer than I had warned you about, but I really appreciate this is a lot of great information for actors. So I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me today.
Of course.
A couple of quick words about today's interview with Victoria. Hopefully it came through in the interview, but Victoria is super passionate about acting, and she brings that energy and enthusiasm to the set. In fact, really before the set, her audition, self-taped audition was creative and interesting. And then meeting her in person, she was very personable and professional. And then obviously on set, she was a consummate professional the whole time. She's super creative, made a lot of really interesting, great choices with the character that she was playing. Really brought the character to life. I can tell you as a producer of low budget films, it's hard to find people who are so passionate about their art, but that's really how movie magic is made. When you're working on projects, you've got to bring your A game to it, no matter what the project is. My movie was definitely not the biggest film that Victoria has been in, but when she showed up on set, she gave it her all. And to me, that's one of the big lessons from this interview with her. Just really listen to how she's been able to maintain her career. A lot of it is the networking. It's working with people, impressing them so they want to work with you again. She's continued to work with the same people over and over again, and that's because she puts in the time and does the work, even on these small projects. The people doing small projects today will be the people doing bigger projects tomorrow. And if you always put your best foot forward, people will notice and they will want to work with you again and again. And I think that's really evidence in what Victoria has been doing, and she's made a career out of it. Anyway, if you enjoyed this interview, do check out my other podcast over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Again, I've got hundreds of podcast episodes over there, mostly with writers, directors, and producers, but there are some great interviews with actors as well. That's our show. Thank you for listening.